Cadillac super, no? It's super cool. You guys have, do you guys have Waymo up here? No what? Anybody ridden in a Waymo? You've ridden in a Waymo. What was it like for you? It was awesome, right? Scary. Well, okay, so tell me if it was scarier than this. Beverly Hills at Christmas with everyone you care about in the car and no one in the front seat. Yeah. So I'm going to tell you this. It was more aggressive than I thought it would be. And we went into the mall where a restaurant was, and it was all under construction. So it had like a big dumpster in the middle of the street and all this stuff. I would take a Waymo over an Uber any day. Any day. Cheaper, and you know what? I'm a cheap ass, no tip. Right? Okay, so this is what we do with this. But now we've got calibrations. And this is the new frontier. What do you do with calibrations? There's 3 crucial steps. How am I doing for time? Okay. Okay, 3 crucial steps to secure. I'll talk faster. First one, why is a calibration required? And Mr. Greg Peters, he's a company in the U.S. setting up calibration centers across the country, and he does this as a service. Who says it's needed? Like why? What triggered the need? Document what steps, procedures need to occur to achieve that calibration. What specifically do you need to do? And then document procedures and actual steps taken to complete the calibrations with proof you did it. And the proof in this case is not necessarily a bill. All right? Okay, the key is documentation, and you're going to hear that a lot. So typically there's some tools up here. Do you guys have ADAS Think up here? You have ADAS Think and then All Data, right? Okay, and there's one in the U.S. called Rev ADAS. That's another version of it. And they're starting to come out with technology that helps you, right? So it scrubs your estimate, and ADAS Think gives you this list. You know, static calibration for the blind spot, and it looks for a procedure, and it tells you, in this case, a rear bumper triggered it, line number 119 and 121, and it's typically triggered. And the cool part is, you know, now it says, hey, you have to do this when you take a bumper cover off. You now have to do the OEM, and if you click in the ADAS Think, you click there, it takes you to the actual steps that you need to do, right? Now, here's the uncomfortable part. The very first line. Empty the vehicle by having all occupants leave the vehicle and remove all the cargo except for the spare tire, jack, and tools. Is that an included procedure? So, empty the vehicle is what? Is it required? Uh-huh. So maybe your work documents are, can you please take all your personal effects out of the vehicle as a way of saving your insurance company money? I'm only reading what it says here. Yeah, no, it's okay. Adjust the pressure of each tire to the specified value. See the specifications. Do you have to go look that up? It might be on the door. That's great, but what if it's not on the door? You got to go look it up. You got to get OEM procedure access, right? Okay, looking at this here, it says park the vehicle on level ground. Somebody define level for me. Level. So both my boys are involved in the calibration industry. I'll tell you, level is within 5 millimeters of itself over 20 feet. That's level. Okay? You'd have to go to Mazda and ask Mazda what that specification is. Be clear, the wash bay's not the place. Okay? And the driveway is not the place. And the car sitting in the shop level with the target outside is not the place. Okay? You guys understand this, right? There is lives at risk. No joke. The latest wrongful death lawsuit was for a car repaired, and the calibration was not performed. It wasn't that it was performed poorly. It wasn't performed. So think about that. Okay, go through. We got some space requirements. We're all the way up to step 6. And I want to point out something really odd to me. Anybody work on Mazdas in here? Awesome. So I got lots of references. Mazda. This particular SUV, I don't even know what it is. It's some kind of Mazda. Do you know if the pins for the emblem on the rear gate, are they secure, like the rear emblem, is it secured by pins, or is it just an adhesive that adheres to kind of the center of the gate? I'm asking you, the guy standing at the back door. Okay, who else had their hand up? They come both ways, right? Okay, but it does have pins. Okay, not all vehicles do. Okay, perfect. You know why? Because when you calibrate the vehicle, this procedure calls for you to put a string down through the center of the brand emblem to locate the center of the vehicle. Now, if it doesn't have pins on the nameplate, what would you be required to do? If you're taking the nameplate off to paint the gate, or if your guys use a putty knife and take the nameplate off, right? Because they're going to, you said there's a kit, an adhesive kit we were talking about. Yeah, you're going to buy the kit to restick it back on, but the pins are gone now. You probably need to create a template and mark and measure the location of that nameplate before it comes off. Because we got a case of the Zackleys again, right? It has to go exactly in that spot. Otherwise, the calibration's wrong. The center line of the vehicle is tagged incorrect, and 200 feet down the road, that car's camera could be looking in the ditch. Okay, keep going. What I'm trying to get to the point of, whoop, can you go back one, please? Because I can't do that. Awesome. There is 22 steps to calibrate the blind spot. So how much time do you guys typically get for something like that up here? Is that a 2.6? Really? Blind spot radar calibration. Awesome. What about creating the environment that the calibration is going to occur in? Is that included in that procedure? Right? Because it's a lot of tape and drawing on the floor and putting a center line through the vehicle. My point was, in some of the areas that I'm at, they get $25 and an hour. And physically, when you look at the tasks involved, it's not possible to do it in that time. And this is because there's the comment, well, you know, you win some, you lose some, right?
What's the $25?
What's the 1 hour for? Right? So it's people trying to use an economic solution to an engineering problem. And I got that from a guy named Sean Carey. Sean Carey is an international speaker for the insurance industry. And he said, our industry has always used economic suasion as a way of trying to solve consumer claims. And it has to stop and become a mechanical. We have to use an engineering solution to solve it. And whatever the price is what the price is. Okay, that's the point. Okay, so here's an alignment sheet that was deemed adequate to be able to perform a calibration. What do you think? Well, I know, but the thrust angles, like right here, center lines and spec. Center lines and spec. This thing was deemed by the technicians because they were instructed, you got to get the thrust angle right. Okay, I read this as, I'm an insurance adjuster. I'm not paying for anything past this point because it's a waste of money. Okay, this is what it should look like. So every vehicle that you go through, and it follows a very specific sequence when you're doing calibrations. The very first step is, the gentleman here said, fill the vehicle with fluids. Make sure they're all at the correct fluid level. If you don't have the correct fluid level, there's applications and devices that allow you to put a certain amount of weight in the vehicle to represent half full, 3/4 tank of gas, and they tell you exactly where to put it in a particular vehicle. So you can do that. It's not optimal, right? But it's a way for you to be able to standardize this process. The second thing you do is you make sure that all the personal effects are out of the vehicle. Sometimes you have to put a weight on the driver's seat. Then you have to check all the fuel pressures. All the tire pressures and guarantee they're at spec, right? Then you perform an alignment, and then you perform a steering angle sensor calibration, now the vehicle is ready to accept the calibration. And that has to happen every time. Now, one of the facilities that my boys work at, they were doing an Audi. The Audi came in. They had to recalibrate the vehicle. The tire had 15% tread wear left on the tires before the bar. So they were getting low, but they weren't worn out. And the first thing they did when they went to do the calibrations is to reset the ride height on the car. Now, you got a customer in for a collision repair. Tires are looking pretty thin. And now you're going to undergo $1,800 to $2,000 worth of calibrations that they're going to have to do in 1,000 miles again. Maybe there's an upsell opportunity there for them to go and buy some new tires right now. You might pre-do it, but you need to know that. Can you imagine the conversation with the customer if they went to go put tires on it and said, you saw it needed tires, but you never said a word to me. I want you to pay for all my calibrations again or do them for free. Right? These are the considerations you're going to have as this technology starts to come into the play. Okay, so here's an example of an adequate one. This is that same Mazda. You can see the pre-scan report showed that it had a whole bunch of stuff that needed to be cleared and calibrated. Go through. Here's what you should have for documentation. You'll notice that there is a photo of the vehicle in the stall being documented. You can see the lines on the floor, by the way, when they did the calibrations. All the floors are white. They use a dry erase marker, and they mark the measurements and the targets, and they draw it right on the floor, and they capture photos of those little bits of documentation to ensure that the insurer knows that what they're paying for is exactly what they're getting, okay? And they can prove it. Why do they want to prove it? Because they don't want to wind up with a lawsuit. Okay, keep going. There's a photo of the target set, which target, how high the target was on the rack. There's a photo of each tire with the actual tire pressure showing on the valve little gauge. These are small photos, but in the real photo you can read the 32 PSI or whatever it is. Okay? So that's the whole point. Now we're going to talk about, have we picked the right part for the car? So if you're repairing a vehicle for a consumer, you want to go through and you want to look at that. Some contracts have one promise to take it to pre-loss, and then down here they say, look, we'll put used parts, OEM parts, aftermarket parts, or parts from the bottom of the ocean. The whole point is that this standard contra preferentum, I don't care what you guys used, just make it like it was. And some aftermarket parts, guys, they're perfectly fine. Some aren't. And by the way, it's not just these days you have to worry about OEM parts being counterfeited. You have to worry about Kappa parts being counterfeited. And I got a little story here. Little segue. AC Delco spark plugs. I bought some online. They were aftermarket AC Delco. They were counterfeit AC Delco spark plugs, and I spent 2 years trying to tune my freaking car around a set of junk spark plugs that looked identical until you really looked at an original set. They looked, and it ran. It just ran like crap, right? Okay, all right. So I have a test. You guys all fix cars, right? Does anybody in the room work on Toyotas? Nobody? Okay, well, you guys all work on a Toyota. Have you ever worked on a Toyota between the range of 2020 to current model year? Awesome, perfect. Then you know what this is. What's that foam block and that sticker? No, okay, what's on a bumper? Not a windshield spacer, it's on a bumper. Here, here's the question. You see the foam block, and you see this foil sticker, okay? What are the purpose of those two items? And before you answer, next question is, are these included in the remove and replace of the R&I of the bumper cover? More importantly, would you order these as replacement components, and do aftermarket bumpers come with the location marks to install the foam bumper and the foil strip? Let me see if I can make it a little bigger for you guys. What's that? And what's that? And then notice that they go in very specific spots on the cover. In fact, they've even taken the little pebbling on the inside and cleaned it out so that has a good place to adhere to. And I don't want the iCar guys to answer because they know, so you guys can't say anything. Okay, so you say targets. You said a windshield spacer. What else? I'm poking at you. Anybody else? Yeah. What?